Hello, Friendswood. Last night on Mustang Voices, we missed a few of the opening minutes and just want to record that over, then start with what we recorded last night to send out to all of you so you can see our discussions and hear our discussion from last night. Mustang Voices, we've gone through a few iterations of what it is, but just the whole goal of it being to hit a couple of topics and give you an opportunity to ask questions or to send topics in. And we've had it in an open forum, but we began putting it on Facebook Live, and tonight, or last night, we went Facebook Live only so that we could send it out, people could send questions in, and that's the format we're gonna use from here on out. It'll be shorter sessions. Would ask you to tune in and ask questions, and then for those of you who aren't on Facebook, we're gonna send that as a video clip out for you to be able to watch if you want, and then have some email places or links to ask questions that pertain to what we talked about last night. But the opening part that we missed last night was talking about our strategic plan and our committee of 40 plus community members, parents, students, principals, counselor, central office staff that work together to gather information that you put into surveys that we had in focus groups made up of each of those individual groups, to put together a strategic plan with components that are going to drive a lot of what we do, as a school district over the next 5 years. The school board recently adopted those, and it's really impetus, the why behind the three of the topics that we're going to talk about on this video, and that is class rank, elimination of class rank consideration, safety, and also just the Education Foundation grants. So what's following this is our tape from last night at Mustang Voices, and as you look at the next Mustang Voices, it'll be a very similar format. So appreciate you're taking a few minutes to watch what we have for you. And out of those beliefs, out of our call to action, some specific actions have taken place, and that's really, to talk about, that's the why to talk about class rank tonight. So I want to talk about two of the beliefs that were the drivers in the discussion that we're going to start tonight with you. Belief number 4 is that education has a responsibility to value and support all students' dreams and aspirations. And our belief number 5 is that learning is unique to the individual's passions and needs. And that was a common theme across all of those groups and the surveys that you put in, is that individualization. And so from that, as we went to our call to action, through authentic experiences and relationships, FISD will graduate confident learners equipped with the knowledge, skills, and character to thrive in and contribute to a global society. That individualization with those authentic experiences came through again. From that, this committee put together learner outcomes, goals, 7 specific goals, and all of this. Dana, I think we put a link, some links up. Is that one of those links? Is that strategic plan link?
It's the first comment, yes.
To our website, where you can see all of those pieces put in place. I'm just talking about a small piece of that. But goal number 2 for us is we will redefine the measure of student success based on our beliefs and call to action. So that redefining of the measure of student success. And what that looks like, redefining that measure. In a really brief summary, it is that student success doesn't equate to every student going to a 4-year college as they graduate from Friends of High School. Our community has many college-bound students. That's still part of our culture, but it's looking at all of those students, individualizing them, and what's behind the drive of those different choices in the classes they take, the choices that are made by them as they go through the years experimenting with different pieces. And so in all of that, as the specific results, what are results we hope to see, we came back with year 1 specific results. Really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 specific results for this first year, which really starts this coming fall, year 1. But in the springtime, in the meantime, as we prepare for that, it's rolling out the strategic plan and then looking at the specific results. One came very clear, and that is to establish a system that eliminates class rank and cultivates each student's unique path. So in that specific result, that team and in different groups that we've talked with, all of this drives out the why. Why do you eliminate class rank? How does that do what we've been talking about in here, which is cultivate a student's unique path? And so as we looked at that, class rank drives a lot of different pieces. And Diane Myers, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, has, have given her the charge, and this is something that we've been looking at as a school district, Friends of High School, for several years. But now as we look at what the strategic plan in our community, the people who are all part of that, what they want and why, now we have the why behind looking at eliminating class rank. So Ms. Myers is going to talk briefly about the process for exploring class rank. I hope I explained the why behind that. I'm sure what she's going to talk about will give you some of that as well. But pop those questions up, and we can answer them as they come. So, Ms. Myers, thanks for being here.
You're
in
welcome.
The office tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Rohr, for having me. And I just want to take a minute to talk about the importance of the process that Mr. Rohr just talked about that process of how the strategic plan was developed, because we're going to mimic that process in that plan as we move forward on these specific results. And the one that Mr. Rohr says I've been charged with is this idea of exploring the real use and need for class rank, and does it match to our call and beliefs. So he mentioned that there was a committee with a lot of different people put together to bring all of those ideas and bring all those questions as we produce this, as the strategic plan was produced. So that's the process that we're going to use as we begin exploring class rank. So based on the input from that strategic plan and those beliefs, we began some research, and we're going to look at putting a committee together. We're going to look at that committee being with parents, with teachers, with students, because we know this topic brings a lot of questions up, and that's what we need tonight, is we need your questions. So let me just give you a little bit of background on class rank. First, it's important that class rank and GPA be looked at as two separate identities. GPA is an important part of a student's high school career, that grade point average. It's that grade point average then that's used to rank kids, to compare kids against kids based on their GPA. And our beliefs are pulling us away from that. Our beliefs are pulling us away from comparing kids to kids based on their grade point average, and giving kids that opportunity to explore things of interest, to explore courses they might not have taken because it doesn't have weight contributing to their GPA that they know is going to be used to rank them against somebody else. So our beliefs are saying to look at each kid individually and to celebrate that kid's passion and that kid's strengths, not that kid's passion and that kid's strengths based on the kids next to them and their GPAs. So that's again, reiterating the why behind this exploring GPA. GPA is very important, and it is still going to be used. So I want to be clear in the front that we're not talking about eliminating GPA. It's eliminating the rank and the comparison.
And would you say too, in comparison, it's maybe even more so that they're just not compared to a same number of someone in another school district that has the same thing, that it forces that individualization of looking at the specific kid and their interests, the things that they've branched out to take, versus looking at another student who is both in the top quartile in their graduating class from a surrounding school district or someplace else.
Absolutely, because most of the decisions that are used to base class weight, GPA, are all local decisions. So even though a lot of surrounding districts do things similarly, they're not the exact same.
Right.
So that's a good point to make. Another note that I want to make tonight is that the state of Texas, there is a law that requires all school districts to rank the top 10%. So that is not something that we can negotiate and talk about through this committee. It's a state law, and we still do have to rank and report the top 10%. So back to the process. So this committee is going to be formed. We want to answer your questions. The first question that comes up is, how are colleges now going to look at our kids without a rank? Well, I did some preliminary research on this, and College Board, it's the organization or the entity that really drives the SAT, those college entrance exams, and they have some interesting facts out already. Right over 50% of the schools nationwide have done away with class rank for the very reasons and the why that Mr. Rohr and I have spoken to already. There seems to be some unjust or some unfairness of maybe some kids are being eliminated looked at for elite colleges because their ranking is low, even though their GPA might be extremely high. So that's the research, and that's the first question that parents and teachers and students have. What does this mean to me without a rank as I apply for colleges? So we're going through our research. We're going to do some more looking into that. We're going to contact representatives from colleges and ask those questions. But what we need is we need more questions from y'all. What are your questions so that as we run through this process, we can make sure that we are answering all the questions that are going to be out there. So if you will please comment, put your questions down on Facebook Live in our comment section. We're not going to respond to those questions tonight. What that's doing is that's giving us the ability to answer your questions that you might have as we go through this process.
Isn't it true too, I mean, as you looked at this, one of the main drivers of that is the understanding that colleges will look then, if without a rank, at the individual student. That's the draw, which matches up with our beliefs.
That is exactly what College Board is reporting. One of the highest performing school districts in the state of Texas, Highland Park, did this, eliminated rank 9 to 10 years ago. So College Board and then other high performing high schools have followed. So College Board has had 8 to 10 years to gather some research and gather some understanding from the school districts that have gone before us to make this decision.
Very good. Any questions that you see for us to answer right now?
Please put your questions in. If you'd like to email me, my email is dmyers@fisdk12.net. We need your input, so let us know what we need to look at.
Just moving on, I just want to hit on a couple of other areas quickly. The first is in terms of safety. You know, we've put out, and you've probably seen that Friendswood ISD was awarded by Niche in the Houston area, the #1 school district in the area. And I want to just, you know, pointedly and just talk about that isn't something that we just take for granted in terms of resting on our laurels. There's still a lot of pieces moving forward. Was in multiple meetings this week. Our safety committee met this week. School safety advisory committee met this week. We had our district safety committee met. Two of the things that we're really focusing on, I'll just point out tonight. First is a reunification, a very comprehensive reunification plan. Right now we're working with the Harbor Church as our reunification site. We're working very closely with our city, with FPD for a drill that is related to that. We met with administrators this morning and went through some of those steps to go through that. So that's an important piece in terms of preparation, the roles and responsibilities for each of those, and then communicating back to you about how that would look and practicing it and stepping through some of those steps so our community, our school district, our principals, all of us can feel what that might feel like. And then secondly, if you're at Westwood or you're at the high school, you know we're working on those vestibules and glassing in the receptionists that are in those areas as part of our continuing talking about facilities and those steps. So those are two of the things really this month we're working on. Should be finishing up Westwood, and the high school, you know, will be next. But I wanted to just talk briefly about those two things in terms of safety. And again, if you have comments, questions, pop those up, and I can catch them at the end. And then lastly, Education Foundation grants. Authentic learning, I've talked about it already in our beliefs and talked about it in our call to action. Authentic learning, learning you can put your hands on, learning that you can see, experience is something that's important. It's research shows that's the best way that students learn. And so we want to promote that. There's a lot of experiences that you can see that on our the things that are sent out on our websites, on our Facebook page, our Twitter page. The campuses all are putting out a lot of different pieces that are related to authentic learning. And so Education Foundation is a critical teammate for Friendswood ISD that works hand in hand to be able to provide that. School funding being what it is, we rely on the Education Foundation, PTOs, those of you who are members of that, to put those tools in the hands of our teachers. Our teachers write grants, and then from those grants, there's an opportunity for you, for me, for all of us to purchase those, and the Education Foundation and their fundraising efforts also goes in and makes choices to purchase those grants. If you want to purchase a grant, is that one of our links?
It is.
Ms. Owen, one of the links that's on, I think it's the first comment under this, one of those links is to that page. If nothing else, go to our district web page, and on the rotator there should be a link for that grant to click and look through those grants. 60% of those are $200 or less. So some of them are broken down into small pieces, and each one of them provides that opportunity. Paige Rideout's the executive director of the Education Foundation here at Friendswood ISD. She can answer your questions if you want to email her or make contact with her about anything grant related or Education Foundation related for that matter. I just encourage you to look at those grants that you can sort by teacher, by program, by school, to be able to focus maybe something that you want to contribute towards that, and help out with our beliefs, our goals. We feel very fortunate in Friendswood ISD to have the parents and the community support that we do, and things like the Niche School Safety Award, the different state qualifying pieces that we get, you should take pride in that as well as we do. That is a partnership. And so for us to partner together on these Education Foundation grants means a lot to our teachers, to our administrators, to where we want to head educationally, and just would encourage you to take a look at that and consider that in the next couple of days. Before we close out, I'll just ask kind of our group that's here if there's anything else we need to answer before we close out.
No, it's been great. Paige has been active, and she's been adding information and links as you've been talking about grants.
Okay, yeah. Great. So we'll close out tonight. Again, yes ma'am.
Thad, we did have one person ask, he came in late and he said, what non-rank? So if they'll just watch back from the beginning, they'll understand that decision has not been made yet, that's what we're in the process of talking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So look back to the first part of this, and we're just really setting the stage, and the main piece I guess to pick up is the why is our strategic plan, our committee that came together, a very large committee team, and even in those individual, our students were our first group talking about that class rank and how I'll take, my daughter, for example, was not in a top 10%, was a competitive student. Her rank in Friendswood ISD, and compared to students in other school districts, you put her on paper next to them, the numbers are different. But as you look at her whole, the things that she'd done, the activities that she was a part of, the classes that she took, the interests that she had, and she made some decisions to be in things that affected her class rank, the way that the GPA system is set up. And so for a college to pick up the paperwork of her and someone else who has a class rank and see that class rank, and as they compare, be able to look at what she's done and who she is versus a number, the same way that they would do for a homeschool student, the same way that they would do for a private school student, to look at the person. And so if it's something she's interested in, floral design, that gives her the opportunity to do those things, because then it spreads out what those interests are versus not taking it because I could make it into this class rank system, or I don't want to fall below a certain number. It just allows that. GPA system's still going to drive rigor for our courses and still drive that, because that's what's important for colleges to see. But in terms of rank prohibiting or preventing decisions for other areas of interest, or things that they're, I guess just to repeat it again, things that they're interested in is really what we're looking for. Anything else before we close out? Thanks for watching, and see you next time.